Good morning, friends. Pedro here from Ferreira Homestead. Hey, I wanted to share a video with you, and I've been debating whether or not to do this and share a couple of thoughts about my Jeep Wrangler. In my case, I have a 2020 Jeep Wrangler. It is the 2.0. It's the Jeep Wrangler Limited, so it's not the most expensive Jeep, but it served me well up until recently, and possibly is going to serve me well for many more years, hopefully. But here's what I want to share with you. On a recent trip, my Jeep here decided to flush out a bunch of coolant. Pretty much I ended up getting stuck, having to call my son to come and tow me. Luckily, we also had some tools. Anyway, long story short, I got the car home. You know, I'm very mechanically inclined and I do carry a lot of tools in the car. But in this case, it was a little bit of a catastrophic situation with the Jeep. So to explain to you what's going on, and I know from the research that I've done that this problem is going on not only with 2020 Jeeps. From what I gather, 2021, 2022, at least there's models. I found a technical service bulletin. I actually found two for these Wranglers. And of course, when you call Jeep says, no, there's no recalls, there's no nothing for your Jeep. So that's why I wanted to make this video, and that's why I want to make you aware of this. Now, if you guys know, if you own one of these, you know that the engine warranty is basically up to 60,000 miles. 60,000 miles or 4 or 5 years. I have the warranty stuff inside. Don't quote me on that, but I know it's 60,000 miles, and I'll tell you why in a moment. I know that. So I found two technical service bulletins that I can share if you guys want. But one is number 0700122. Revision A, and then they came out with 0700122 Revision B. And basically the subject of this is the water pump inlet tube fastener torque. So the overview on this is this bulletin involves checking the torque on the water pump inlet tube fasteners to possibly eliminate coolant leak at these locations. Now, and this is for models 2018 to 2022 JLs. But I have done some research online, and I have found that other Jeeps are having this issue. Of course, with my luck, my car has now 69,000 miles, and I had no leaks whatsoever. I've always maintained the car. I've always had a mechanic go over it and check everything. But I can say that within the last 1,000 miles, perhaps, or around 68,000 miles. Keep in mind that's already out of warranty. Of course, it tends to be when these things happen, right? As soon as the warranty expires is when all the shit happens in these cars. Or, I mean, I had a similar problem with a refrigerator that was less than a year old. But anyway, yeah, and I am comparing my Jeep with a freaking refrigerator. But anyway, so I got the car home, I contacted Jeep, and of course, being that I was at this point around 68,500 miles or so 68,500 miles, they of course quickly informed me that I was past the warranty period, but if I was willing to take in the car to Jeep, that as long as I paid for the diagnostics, you know, maybe they could try to see if they could do something to help me offset the cost. All right, but I was saying that at about 68,000 miles, I did notice a little bit of an oil leak going on in the engine compartment. And you know, I went through it. I kind of looked and I knew, okay, I got to do something about this. Luckily, I don't think I have any other damage to the car caused by the antifreeze and by the car going limp and telling me that it was starting to overheat. I immediately pulled over, so I'm no stranger to a situation like that, and brought the car home, called Jeep, and basically figured out that I wasn't going to get too far with Jeep. So I decided to get under the car and open up my toolbox, and like I said, I've done a lot of the mechanics in my cars for years. So I got some Torx screws and Torx bits, I should say, and got under there. And guys, I gotta say that I was very surprised that the bolts were so loose that I was able to basically back them off by hand. That's how loose they were. Now, I never noticed a leak in my car. I've never had and I checked, so I've never really noticed a leak in my car. And from what I gather is they loosen up until a certain point, and then all of a sudden they pop, and that's when all your antifreeze comes out, and then you shit out of luck. I just went ahead and got under the car. It was a pain in the ass, to be honest with you, where these two screws or bolts are located. I took them out, cleaned them all out, and used some of the blue thread lock product on them. After properly retorquing the tube fasteners, the inlet tube fasteners, I then filled it up with antifreeze and went through the whole process of making sure there was no air bubbles in there, and so far the car is running fine. And that was basically it, just retightening them and retorquing them and making sure that they were properly torqued, which is the problem with this. These things were not properly torqued at the factory, and that's basically a simple thing that's leaving a lot of people stranded. So the first thing I want you to take away from this video is that if you have a 2018 to at least a 2022, possibly even later models, 23, 24, I would definitely get under there, guys. Even if you don't see a coolant leak, get under there, have a mechanic look at it if it's something you're not comfortable doing, but get under there and check, because like I said, I drove this car. I bought this car brand new. I drove this car at a little bit over 68,000 miles, and this only happened now. So they tightened them up, but they didn't tighten them up properly. They weren't torqued properly, and so it takes time. But eventually, if your car has that problem, and most likely does. And if it hasn't been checked, or if you have not taken it in to get this taken care of, because Jeep will not reach out and say, "Hey, go in because we screwed up and we did not we did not torque your car properly there," and so it's one of the things that I told them. And the first thing that the woman said at Jeep was that there was nothing, there was no recalls, no nothing under my VIN. But yet comes to find out that JLs and 2018 to 2022 JLs do have a problem. And I found online other people complaining about this, and exactly the same thing, complaining that Jeep just does not warn anybody. They kept this very, very quiet. Keep in mind this is the 2.0 engine, which is could be another video in itself. As you guys know, they're very torquey engines. They're very economical. They're very fast for Jeeps, but they sound like shit. My curious mind said, okay, if they didn't torque these two fasteners, if they didn't torque them properly, what else did they not torque properly in this car? And so, because I was starting to spring a leak somewhere in here, or the car was springing a leak, thankfully I'm not springing leaks yet, I decided to get on here and investigate, what's going on, where's this oil leak coming from, and it was a very slow oil leak, but it's there. Let me see what's going on. So I'm going to take you closer to the motor here and do my best to show you what else I found. Alright guys, so I hope you can see this okay and you can hear me okay. It's very hot outside. I'm trying to do this in my garage here, in my carport. But so I traced the oil leak up to the top over here, and I proceeded to take this cap off. I already unscrewed it just for the sake of the video, obviously. What I found was that the leak was coming up top here somewhere. The leak that I had was basically coming from around here. Okay, and you're not really going to see it unless you remove the cover off of the car. And so the leak was coming from around here. So I decided to take some of these things out of the way, because what I found and get ready for this, guys, you better sit down. The leak was coming from around here, so I decided, if they didn't tighten those other bolts properly, could it be that there's other things here that have not been torqued properly? So sure enough, I took the cover off and started here with this bolt here. You start checking these bolts, and I got my torquing wrench out, and sure enough, that bolt was pretty loose. And then I proceeded to go to the next bolt right here, and to my surprise, I was able to basically grab it like this and able to turn it with my fingers. So obviously not retorqued. So of course, now I decided to just go through the whole car, and all of these here, all of these valve cover gasket, I guess. These cars are a little bit different than your traditional, but all of these right here were very, very loose. So I proceeded to just retorque. I looked it up on the manual, looked it up online, found out what the torquing specifications were for these, and I proceeded to go around the whole thing. And some are very easy to get to with some extensions. Some you'll have to move tubes out of the way. But so these were loose, guys. All of these guys here, all around, they all had to be retorqued. They were not properly torqued. They were loose. And like I said, there was at least two, including that one right there, that I could move them by hand. And so I went through the whole thing, retorqued everything that I could. Even this guy right here was not torqued properly. And so I went around as best as I could, being that my car is out of warranty, of course, by 9,000 miles. And I retorqued everything and proceeded to power wash the area. I pretty much power washed the whole car. I didn't really power wash here. There's a lot of electronics. I had the cover on, so I power washed carefully with the cover on. I made sure to cover some of these electronic things like the alternator. But so I power washed, and basically so far I have about 500 miles in this car, and no signs of an oil leak anymore. So all right, so that's basically take number 2, is besides having somebody, either yourself or a mechanic, check the inlet, the 2 inlet bolts down there, and make sure they're torqued properly. And again, even if you are not leaking antifreeze, do not trust that, because I did not have any leaks, and all of a sudden it was a catastrophic situation where it just popped out enough to let go of all of the antifreeze. I know it's crazy, but please go and check. Even if you don't see a leak, it could be so minor that it just evaporates and it doesn't show up on the floor of your garage. Go get that checked, because that simple situation can ruin a whole day. If you're out with a family, for example, on a trip like I was, it can ruin your whole day, and just because of two bolts that need to be torqued properly. Okay, it's very, very easy. If you are somewhat mechanically inclined, you can do this. It's really not that complicated. Even if you don't have an oil leak, I would check these guys right here and go all the way around and check them also, because mine were loose. Mine were loose, and I had an oil leak on that corner right there. Okay, because of that. So far I've retorqued them, and as you can see right down there, I'm about 500 miles now after I did that, or close to 500 miles, and I have no oil leaks so far. Okay, so again, now I'm under the car, and basically the oil leak was showing up right there where the oil filter is. I thought for a little bit that maybe the oil filter was leaking, or the gasket in the oil filter, but as it turns out, it wasn't. It was coming down. Sorry guys, it's going to be a little shaky. I'm trying to do this with my hand by holding it and pointing it out. But so the oil was coming down this way. This was dirty right here, and I thought maybe going into the oil pan. I thought, and I looked around, and I did the best that I could right here to power wash. It's still a little dirty, but so what prompted me, before I retorqued everything, what prompted me to know that I had an oil leak is basically I had a little drop here every time it was coming down, and there was always a little bit of oil right there, and of course it was splashing all the way back, and it was as you're going, it was splattering all the way back. So I power washed as best as I could under here. I don't have a lift, so I have to basically crawl under the car and do my best, and it's hard, to power wash while you're under the car. So but so far, like, these pipes were all dirty they were all dirty with oil, and so far so good. I'm going to keep my fingers crossed. But so that's the problem. By the way, I'm going to try to show you here. It's kind of hard because I don't have a lot of light, but the inlet that you got to tighten up is right up here, and I'm going to try to show it to you from the top. There it is. Hopefully these will kind of show you, but the part that you got to check, and there it is. All right, hopefully you can see this, guys, but it's that part down there. That's the inlet with the 2 bolts that are causing people a lot of trouble, and go get it checked. But if you get that done yourself or through a mechanic, definitely go ahead and have them check these other guys up here, and just go around and check everything. And especially if you have an oil leak, just go around and check everything. There it is. I mean, you can see them right there. I went all the way around the whole car, and retorqued, and they were all loose. Well, I hope this helps you guys out, and I hope I didn't ramble on too much here, but just wanted to share my experience with you, and hopefully save some of you guys from the headache that having the same headache that I had with this car. Overall, the car runs great. It sounds like a diesel, but it's just the way these engines are. These motors in these cars are noisy. They're not quiet by any means. These engines are used in Europe a lot, and they are very known to be very reliable out there in Europe. And like I said, it's a peppy motor. It goes. It's very, very economic. It's peppy for a Jeep. It's pretty fast for a Jeep and torquey. And I've gone all over the place with it. I mean, I've taken this car off-roading and overlanding and all of that. I have some accessories I don't have on right now. I put them on when I go overlanding or camping. It's otherwise been very reliable. Just do the maintenance in it. Ignore the noise of the motor. It sounds like a diesel. People sometimes think I have a diesel, but I've had mechanics look at it in the beginning when I first bought the car, and they told me, no, that's just the way they sound. They're noisy motors. They're not quiet, but they are torquey. They run good. They're very economic, and this is probably my 7th or 8th Jeep Wrangler. I miss my 8-cylinder one that I had. It was an older model. It was a fun car, but it was a gas guzzler. So we're looking for economy now. So they're for long drives, to go camping and so on. This thing is very economic. All right. So anyway, guys, have a good day, and I hope this helps. Take care.